Good morning, everybody. My name is Tony Wayne. I'm at the Mexico Institute. I'm co-chair of the advisory board for the Institute, and it's my great pleasure to be here with Governor Ducey today. From right after his election in 2014, one of the first things he did was invest in the partnership with Mexico. He recognized from before being governor how important Mexico is to Arizona and Arizona to Mexico. And so one of his first trips, I got to receive him when I was ambassador. And so it's a great pleasure.
The very first trip, our very first international trip. So thank you for the hospitality. It was great to have that be the first international trip upon election. And going back to Mexico City was our first international trip upon re-election.
That's great. Yes. Elected 2014, re-elected in 2018. 23rd governor of Arizona?
Yeah, exactly right.
Exactly. Well, that's
I'm having a tough time figuring out why people complain about the heat in Arizona.
Well, it gets a little hotter, just a little further south down there in the state that you partner with a lot, Sonora. They
Yes,
even get hotter sometimes, I think. But anyway, it's great. It's great to have the governor here with us today. We saw each other also in the inauguration of the new federal government in Mexico, and of course that's important for you. And maybe if you could talk a little bit first about that relationship with the federal government, and then talk a little bit about your great partnership that you've developed with Sonora.
Sure. So it was a great event, and my background's in the private sector. I was an outsider and a business person who ran for governor, and I knew that the relationship with Mexico was our number one customer. I mean, it's Arizona's number one trading partner times 4. It's not even close. And I was somewhat shocked that we hadn't had a chief executive visit Mexico in nearly a decade. So we did go to Mexico City for that first international trip, and I just want to say it was such an incredibly warm and inviting reception. All I had to do was present my business card and the new governor, and we were off to a fresh start. So that was a real positive. It was also very reassuring. I brought a large delegation of business people, academics, and government leaders. So everyone was able to see that and see the opportunity that existed with the country of Mexico. And then several months later, Claudia Pavlovich was elected the first female governor of Sonora. My wife Angela and I were able to go and attend her inauguration, and what began as a relationship grew into a partnership, and then very quickly a very warm friendship. Claudia and Sergio have come and spent time with us at Christmas in Arizona. They've come out to the last 3 Phoenix Opens, and we routinely, of course, reciprocate with the Arizona-Mexico Commission, something that was started 60 years ago by Governor Paul Fannin to really secure the relationship with Mexico. And today the relationship is as strong or stronger than it's ever been, and it's really built on the personal relationships. I see Ambassador Barcina here, and when we were going to the new president's inauguration, the ability to meet the new members of the administration was incredibly helpful. So whether it was our initial visit with you, Ambassador, or with Ambassador Jacobson or Ambassador Barcina, we've been very fortunate, and we're going to continue to build and grow these relationships.
Well, that's been one of the key things, is your consistent recognition of the importance of this relationship. So what are some of the big issues on the agenda, in addition that you can work with those personal relationships you've developed, but what are you trying to work through and see fruits?
Well, I would say that the biggest issue for us in sticking to our knitting and what is a state issue is trade and that relationship. And the proof really is in the pudding. We've got a $16.6 billion trade footprint between Arizona and Mexico. It's up 7.7% previous year. It's up 7% this year. So this is astronomical growth. And we've had, I was able in my second state of the state to say I'd be remiss if I didn't thank my partner in growing Arizona's economy. And I gave the credit to California Governor Jerry Brown. He's been just great. He's pushing all kinds of people and producers into our state. And there was a technology company in Northern California that was looking for a new place to locate their manufacturing headquarters. 60 different markets, 13 different states. As a business person, I'm oftentimes more comfortable in those types of negotiations. I know what motivates a business person. Sometimes with the state legislature, I can't always figure it out. And I was on the third and final interview with Lucid Motors, and they asked, how is your relationship with Mexico? And I said, if that's important to you or critical in your final decision, I really want to encourage you to find out for yourself. They went to Hermosillo, met with Governor Pavlovich's team, and 2 months later, on the steps of the Arizona Capitol, myself and Governor Pavlovich, along with the leaders of Lucid Motor Companies, were able to cut the ribbon on what is going to be a manufacturing plant in Pinal County, Arizona, Casa Grande, and it was due to the relationship and the trade relationship with Mexico. So there will be a growth in jobs for Arizona and a growth in jobs for Hermosillo and Sonora. It is a true win-win, and that's very possible in this economy.
That's great. And so we know that for bigger firms, this can have a lot of benefit. How about for smaller communities, smaller firms? How have you seen that develop, and what are you doing to help bring some of them into this exchange also?
Excellent question, because I think what we're seeing in Phoenix and Maricopa County is really off the charts in terms of growth and success. But we also have rural Arizona and, of course, our border communities. San Luis, Douglas, and Nogales, where so much of the cross-border trade happens, along with the agriculture that I know that both countries are so proud of. So those relationships have been important to us as well. We've done things like the Unified Cargo Processing Program that allows our trucks and commerce to just be checked once. It provides for public safety, but it also allows, in a business where time really is money and these fragile products are so perishable, we've gone from an average wait of 8 hours at the border of now less than 40 minutes at the border through this type of relationship. So working with the mayors inside these towns, with the business leaders that are so reliant on the trade and relationship, and it goes back generations. I mean, these are oftentimes family businesses. They remember a much different time, and that's the time that they want, and we want that as well. So the larger issues, I think Senator Cornyn did a great job of summarizing those issues. If it was left to the states, all of these things would be solved right now. It really is the federal government, and I think the United States Congress that needs to act to fix the situation, to make sure that we can continue to have robust trade. We're very excited about the USMCA. We had Ambassador Barcina come to Arizona and addressed our business community, and she said something that I thought was very compelling, and that was that if you care about Mexico, you will vote yes on the USMCA. So we've made certain that all of our Congress people in our delegation have heard that loud and clear.
So you think they can have that same bipartisan cooperation that you've had in the past with California? You think you can get them all pushing for USMCA?
I would like to believe that. I really think this should be done. It should be done as quickly as possible. I like to remind them this is 2019. This is not 2020. This isn't a partisan issue. It shouldn't be part of the election cycle. And I'm someone who was a fan of NAFTA. I'm a believer in free and fair trade. And if the definition of free and fair trade is no tariffs, no subsidies, and no barriers, I'll accept that. But I think we've heard Ambassador Lighthizer say that if we can't pass the USMCA, the other discussions that we're having with Japan, with China, with some of the other, I think, positive opportunities for our economies won't happen. So I really think this is a serious issue, and one that is to the benefit of all of our people.
Thank you very much. Let's talk a little bit about the challenges, the other challenges. We have migration, we have illicit drugs, both of which all along the border are serious challenges in different places. More needs to be done. on each of those. There's now an agreement on migration. The two countries are working to manage those flows better. We still have the illicit drugs flowing northward that need to be handled. What's your perspective as governor?
Well, as a border governor, public safety is something I wake up every morning and am concerned about. So we've worked closely now with our federal government so that we've got the joint cooperation between Customs and Border Patrol, between the men and women that are on the border and that are at the headquarters stations, our Colonel, Frank Milstead, who runs our Department of Public Safety, working with the border sheriffs, and then local law enforcement in these border towns, and that there's a focus on let's find the drug cartels, the human trafficking, the child sex trafficking. Let's make sure the law enforcement effort is being focused there. We have had a positive cooperation from our federal government, and we have law enforcement leaders on both sides of the border that coordinate on this. So that's been a real positive. And there will always be more to do there. That's just part of, I think, ongoing law enforcement and public safety. The biggest challenge has been on the humanitarian crisis. What's happening from the northern triangle with El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala. And I want to say, as difficult as the last couple months have been, and they have been very difficult, our nonprofits and faith-based community are overwhelmed and at the breaking point. We are not only cooperating on the public safety side, now having cooperation and communication on the humanitarian side. So I think that has gone a long ways to avoid some of the things that have been discussed, and I'm hopeful that we can continue to avoid that, because I like to separate these issues out from trade and commerce and the economy, something that I can directly affect. Of course, public safety from whatever state assets that we have, but that we make sure that we continue to communicate and cooperate on that. And again, to call on our Congress for some of the action here. This has been lingering for some time. There's enough blame to go around. This has been in both Republican and Democrat administrations. I think it's an issue, certainly from an Arizona perspective, we would like to see solved.
And you understand this as a former businessman. You understand the costs of unpredictability, of uncertainty, if you're trying to run a business, trying to plan your investment. To have these different threats of disrupting that business is very costly. It's hard to measure that cost, but you probably lived through that in your life.
It is. It's hard to measure it because you don't know when something doesn't happen, what it costs. So when you talk about this trade footprint growing at 7.7% with uncertainty on both sides of the border, what could happen in terms of capital investment and increased trade if we did have some action from our legislative bodies to actually address some of these, and these are very real issues.
Right. I agree with you fully, and I agree fully that there's a lot of responsibility to go all around here, and then the solution is for everybody to accept that responsibility and work together, both in the U.S., between Mexico and the U.S., with Central America, with others.
We go out of our way to point out that this block that we have to trade with, the fact that we have Canada and Mexico as our neighbors is an incredible asset. These are our friends, our trading partners, and our allies. And I think that we need to continue to communicate that. I encourage other governors to have these relationships with Mexico City. We get all kinds of invites to go all over the globe. I think everyone should visit Mexico City in their first year in office, because there could be 38 other governors sitting here right now that have a top 3 trading relationship with the nation of Mexico, and it's something that's benefited us and a relationship that we very much enjoy and value.
That's great. Can we maybe take 1 or 2 questions quickly
Sure.
from the audience? Questions for the governor? Sam.
Russ Jones, proud Arizonan and member of the Arizona-Mexico Commission, and we'll be celebrating our 60th anniversary, which is something in itself incredible. There's nothing like it anywhere on the border, and you're to be complimented on the relationship. Yesterday, I read, and you and Governor Pavlovich put out a joint declaration on USMCA. Could you just expand on that? Because I think it's, as far as I know, you're the only 2 binational governors that have made this kind of a stand on this issue.
Thank you, Russ, and thanks for pointing that out. Yes, Governor Pavlovich and I did put out a joint letter yesterday under both our signatures calling on our legislative bodies to ratify positively, to vote yes on the USMCA, and her team and we've been on the same page on this since the beginning. There has been a movement within the NGA, the National Governors Association, and this is really where my concern is that I've seen some politics creep into this discussion. With Governor Pavlovich and I, we knew that this agreement benefits both our states and both our countries, so we wanted to demonstrate that leadership. And Russ, I want to say thank you to you for the leadership that you show on the Arizona-Mexico Commission and for all the good things going on in Yuma. We like to brag on Yuma. It's the leafy green capital of the world, and and they do a great job there.
Thank you, Russ. Please, back here.
Hi, Governor Merrilee, International Trade Today. I wondered if you would talk about your view of what's going on over at the Commerce Department on the tomato suspension. Florida politicians are obviously making a lot of noise about seasonality, and I know Arizona producers have a very different view.
Well, Marilee, this trade with Mexico, the importance of tomatoes, and really the existing agreements that are there are something that we want to value and protect. We're not trying to keep anyone out of the market, but we're hoping that rule and regulation is not used to benefit one section or sector of the country versus another. So what we want is that level playing field, and also an understanding, as the ambassador pointed out, of some kind of certainty and predictability for existing growers and purchasers. So I know there's been a lot of effort between the Southeast to be more involved in this. We're fine with expanding the market. We think that that's something that's a positive, but we believe some of these efforts to limit or direct the market won't be beneficial to either country. It may help a section of the nation, but that's not good for these trade relationships long term. Certainly not good for the people that have put up the capital investment, employ the people that do the work, and we don't want to see anybody have the rug pulled out from underneath them on some of these changes in regulation.
And as consumers, we all look forward to having a good availability of tomatoes all year round.
Delicious
and
as
other,
they are.
other
Yes.
fruits and vegetables. Thank you very much,
Thank you
Governor.
much. Thanks, Ambassador.
It's been great to have you with us. Thank you.